Hey everybody, it's Women for Theology here, and today I want to talk about something that I think is important. These are things that you need to know before deciding to convert to Islam. If you've noticed, there's a lot of YouTubers, TikTokers, influencers, etc., that are suddenly deciding they want to convert to Islam, but they really don't know anything about it. So if you're one of these people that's thinking about doing that, we need to talk about some things, okay? Converting to Islam is not something you should do because it's trendy or cool, or it seems cool because, like, yeah, praying 5 times a day sounds cool, or like, hey, people don't, push Muslims around because they're scared of them, so, like, yeah, that sounds cool or whatever. No, that's not a good reason to do this. It's not a fly-by-night decision. It's not something you can decide today and change your mind tomorrow. I like to compare it to kind of like when you join the mob or a gang. In many cases, for many people, the only way out is in a box, okay? And you may think that's extreme to say, but we're going to talk about that shortly. So even though it is an individual decision whether or not you want to convert, once you have, the religion is based in collectivism, community, and it's based in submission. So if you don't like submission, you shouldn't convert to Islam. And if you don't like your decisions being made based on a community and not based on what you want to do individually, you should not convert to Islam. It's not based on individuality. It's not based on how you interpret the Quran or the Hadith or what Muhammad said. It's not based on what you think or what makes sense to you, or anything like that. It's based on rote submission to Allah, no questions asked. This is what you have to do, and that's what it is. So you might be saying to yourself, oh, well, yeah, but it's a religion of peace, and the things that they're asking us to do are like not that big of a deal. Well, you need to do your research before joining something like this. You need to know what you're getting yourself into. You need to know what Muhammad taught. You need to know what the Hadiths teach and say and what the Quran says. So as far as the key concepts that you need to believe in, and you've got to believe in all of these. You can't just believe in some of them and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to believe in a couple things. I'm going to take what I like from it, and that's what I'm going to do. This isn't New Age where you can just kind of, I can take a little from here and a little from there, and then I'm good to go. No, you got to believe everything. You got to follow everything. And if you marry a Muslim person, say woman, you're a woman, you marry a Muslim man, you've got a lot worse than even the men have it. But yeah, you've really got to follow this stuff because your husband can enforce this stuff on you. So we're going to talk about that. So let's get started with the main key concepts and beliefs. Okay, so the first one you have to believe is in the oneness of God. This is a fundamental belief in Islam. You have to believe that God is one, Allah, and they believe that Allah is the singular, all-powerful, merciful deity who created and governs the universe. So that's number one. Number two, you have to believe in the prophets throughout history. They believe that these figures include Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and the final prophet who is Muhammad, that has the final say of how things are and how the Holy Scriptures are to be interpreted. They also believe in angels and demons, spiritual beings, and all of these kind of things. They believe that the Archangel Gabriel is particularly significant for having delivered the Quran to Muhammad. Their holy books include the Quran, the Hadiths. They use that to interpret things, but they also use the Torah, the Psalms, the Gospels, and the prophets. So the thing is, though, if the Quran is considered the most complete revelation and final revelation, so if there's something that's conflicting the Quran and something in the Bible, somewhere, they are going to go with what the Quran says. So keep that in mind. They also believe in the Day of Judgment, where Islam teaches that when all individuals, that they'll be resurrected from the dead and held accountable for their actions in this life. And those who have lived righteously will be rewarded with paradise, while others who have led sinful lives will be punished in hell. So the last concept is predestination. They believe that everything has been preordained that happens in the universe, but they do believe that humans have free will to choose their actions within the framework of God's plan. Similar to Christianity, a lot of these things are, and some of these things in Judaism as well. Well, some Christians believe in predestination, but not all of them, but some of them do. So those are kind of some of the basic key concepts. But as far as the actual 5 pillars of Islam, that's going to be the first one, which is the Shahada. If you're going to convert, you have to make a declaration of faith in front of an imam at a mosque, stating that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger. So that is your declaration that you have to do that. And then the next pillar, of course, is prayer. You have to commit to the praying your 5 daily prayers, facing Mecca 5 times a day. Okay, none of this seems too bad so far, right? It's like, oh, okay, no big deal. I can do that, right? Let's see. Let's keep going. It's get a little bit more interesting. The next is charity and almsgiving. So you're supposed to give a fixed portion of your wealth to the needy. That doesn't sound too bad either. We should all give to the poor, right? So, but this is something that you have to do, whether you want to do it or not. So this is expected. And these are fundamental acts of worship, and practice that will shape your life as a Muslim. The next thing, number 4, is fasting during Ramadan from dawn to sunset. So it's like, okay, yeah, sure, a lot of religions fast. What's wrong with that? So far, so good, right? And of course, the last is the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage to Mecca. And that's something that you're supposed to do once in a lifetime, at least if you're physically or financially stable and you're able to do that. So aside from all that, sounds pretty good so far. Decent enough. Sounds easy to follow. Peaceful, sure. Yeah, okay. But wait, there's more. Do you know what haram is and what the punishments are for committing haram? Haram is like committing a sin, and it's like a serious sin, and it's not just like, oh, I just committed the sin, let me just ask for forgiveness and that's it. There's lots of other implications here, and you can't commit these things that are haram. You're gonna need to have to follow these things. So if you enjoy doing any of these things, you're gonna have to stop doing these things, and you're gonna have to quit doing them right away, or it's gonna be a big problem. So let's take a little look into this and discuss this. So here's some examples of some things that are considered haram. Alcohol and anything that is an intoxicant, so consumption of alcoholic beverages and recreational drugs of any kind is strictly prohibited, as they will impair your judgment and behavior. Pork and certain animals, so you're not going to be able to eat pork, bacon, or anything like that anymore. And additionally, any meat that is not slaughtered according to Islamic dietary laws, it's not halal, right, is also considered haram. Usury, like charging or paying interest on loans, is also prohibited, so you can't do that anymore. And Islamic finance operations on principles that avoid interest and speculative practices. So if you're in like a finance type industry, these are things to think about. Can't do these things. Gambling, can't gamble anymore. All forms of gambling and betting are forbidden. They're considered to promote greed and financial instability. So let's say you like to go play poker with your friends, or you like to buy scratch tickets, or you like to go and go to the casino every so often. You can't do that anymore. So that's haram. Illicit sexual relations. So this means adultery of any kind, fornication, which is any kind of sexual relation that you're having that's not within the bounds of marriage, and homosexuality are all considered haram. So you're not permitted to do any of these things. So If you are in the LGBT community and you've just converted to this, you're in a bad place. It's going to be a problem there. If you're unmarried and you're a man and you like to go to the club every weekend and sleep with a new woman every night, that's got to stop too. And if you're somebody that likes to cheat on your husband or your wife, the same thing, you can't do these things. And you're thinking like, oh, but who's going to stop me, right? Well, there's definitely some interesting punishments for this. So, but we'll keep going. Here's another example: stealing or fraud, that involves theft or cheating or any form of deceitful behavior. These things are strictly prohibited. Dishonoring parents or disrespecting them, it's a serious offense, actually. So let's say your parents, they want you to marry someone or not marry somebody, or there's a job they don't want you to take or whatever. You have to honor your parents and your family before you honor what you want to do. So that could be a problem for a lot of people. That would be a problem for me. Lying, slandering, telling lies, spreading rumors, false accusations. These things are no good, obviously. Shouldn't do these things. Idolatry or polytheism. So that would be, well, let's put it this way. Let's say you're into astrology right now, or you're into some New Age practices, or you're into some other kinds of religions or yoga or any of these kind of things, right? Well, that's considered worshiping anyone or anything other than Allah, including idols, deities. These are all things that are strictly forbidden. Participating in any kind of rituals or anything that involves polytheism or idolatry or witchcraft or any of that. Can't do any of that in Islam. For me, that obviously that wouldn't be a problem for me, but for a lot of other people it would be. So engaging in prohibited financial practices, so including dealing in business that involve haram activities such as alcohol, pork, or gambling. So I guess you couldn't work for a casino, you couldn't work in a liquor store, sell alcohol, or anything having to do with pork or any of these industries. So you can't do any of these things. No consuming blood. I don't think a lot of people are really chomping at the bit to do that. So that's a given. Harming oneself or others, so any act that leads to physical harm or oppression of yourself or to other people, acts of violence or abuse is haram. Now this is interesting because there are verses in the Qur'an and Hadith saying that you can beat your wife, but then it says violence or abuse is haram. So that's contradictory. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah. So, but you can take a look at that for yourself. And then certain forms of entertainment. There's some Muslim countries that you can't even listen to music or watch secular movies or do any of these things. But yeah, you're pretty much expected not to engage in entertainment that involves any inappropriate or immoral behavior. So no movies with dirty jokes, sexual, pornographic type things, no pornography, no excessive violence content. Well, it's really hard to find movies that don't contain any of that nowadays. But yeah, these are all considered haram. So not only do you have the 5 pillars of things that you need to do and then the things that you need to believe in, you've got all these other things that you also can't do. So these are prohibited, and they're based on the teachings in the Quran and the Hadiths. And but you may be thinking to yourself like, oh, well, can't I just ask Allah for forgiveness and to be merciful to me? And I mean, sure, you can do that, but there's a lot of other repercussions that come along with it when you don't do these things, even just within the community and by Sharia law. So let's talk about that. So of course there's going to be like spiritual consequences, which, you're going to need to repent and ask for forgiveness. You have to worry about Judgment Day because this is what you believe now. You believe that anybody who has, committed a sin that didn't ask for repentance, that they can face punishment. There's a belief about, being tormented in the grave and all these kind of things. But even now you may be like, okay, so whatever, I'll repent, I'll ask for forgiveness, and I'm good, right? No, honey, this isn't Christianity. That's not the end of it. So there's also community and legal consequences to come along with, committing haram. In some cases, certain haram acts may also have social and legal repercussions within a Muslim community. And that's not just in a Muslim country. This can be in the UK, this could be in America. These things can still happen, right? So if they violate societal norms or laws based on Sharia or Islamic law, these can include penalties and corrective measures depending on the specific context and the jurisdiction. Even in Canada, there's really bad things happening like this, okay? I just actually watched a testimony on that this morning. So impacts on personal life, like when you commit haram, this can lead to like personal consequences, of course, like guilt and loss of respect or trust within the community. So people shaming you, people shunning you, it damages your reputation and things like that. Nobody wants to be around you or have you in the community, or you know what I'm saying? Like they really kind of push you out for doing these things. And it's even worse if you're a woman. Like if you're a woman, it's you know what I'm saying? You get even less forgiveness. So let's talk about Sharia law and penalties. So in many countries and communities governed by Sharia law, certain severe haram acts may carry specific legal penalties. For example, theft can range from fines to corporal punishment. Depending on the severity of the circumstance, they could even amputate your hand, cut off your arm. These are punishments that can happen with this. When it comes to adultery and fornication, punishments can include lashing or stoning. That's pretty bad. So, for example, married individuals, the punishment can be stoning to death. And for unmarried individuals, the punishment is typically 100 lashes. And the conviction requires a testimony of 4 adult male witnesses to the act of penetration or a confession from the accused. That's interesting. I wonder how that would work. But regardless of whatnot, I'm sure they figure it out somehow. So let's say in the case of homosexuality, this is also a case that requires severe punishment, where you could be stoned or put to death in many Muslim countries for this. So this is also a problem. False accusation of adultery, the punishment could be 80 lashes. Alcohol consumption, typically the punishment is 40 to 80 lashes. Highway robbery, this can range from crucifixion, amputation of the alternate hands and feet, or execution, depending on the severity of the crime. Oh, and my favorite, apostasy. If you decide to be an apostate and you decide to walk away and decide you don't want to be a part of this anymore, traditionally the punishment for apostasy is death. Although this is highly contentious and a debated issue within the Muslim world today, but when I said that the only way out was in a box, this is what I meant. You can't just decide you don't want to do this anymore and you just, this is too much and it's not what I thought it was going to be. If you decide to be an apostate, you will receive death threats from other Muslims, and there's lots of extremists and things like that. If you live in a Muslim country, or if you live in a country that honors Sharia law, this could happen to you. So these are all things to think about before deciding to join something like this. It's not like Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or whatever, where it's like, you can just kind of do whatever you want, and if you like it, it's cool, and if not, you can change later. No, this is like I said, this is like joining a gang. Like, you're not just going to get out, and God forbid if you're a woman, when you marry a Muslim man, forget trying to leave. I mean, you're kind of, I'm not saying everybody, I'm not saying every single one, because of course there's different Of course, there's more fundamentalists that are going to be more extreme and they're not going to allow you to leave, or they're going to take all your resources away so you can't leave, so on and so on. And again, if you try to leave, your community is not going to support you financially, and they're not going to support you personally, emotionally, spiritually, anything like that. So yeah, I mean, this is difficult, and God forbid you have a child with this person. So for women, I mean, I would advise against it. I mean, I would honestly advise against it for anyone, but especially if you're a woman and you're considering doing this, I would not. You really need to do your research before deciding to do this. This is not, this is not a fly-by-night thing. So yeah, these are all things you need to know, and if you want to know more, you can do your research, but these are just a few things that I thought were really important. I have read into some of the Qur'an and the Hadiths and what they teach, and of course there's scholars that, interpret things in different ways. But you just never know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates, You could get somebody who is full on, believes that this is the way things should be, or you've got people who are just kind of culturally in it and they don't even really practice it. So, it's not like they're born into it, whatever, and they're just a little bit more secular with it and so on. But they still have this constant guilt. They still have this constant feeling of not knowing whether or not they are going to be forgiven, where they're going on Judgment Day, where they're going when they die. I've watched a ton of testimonies, and it seems like they all had this constant fear and this constant guilt that they walked around with. And I mean, that really sucks. I mean, who wants to live like that? You know what I'm saying? You can find a better way. So that's that. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about Islam and what they believe and what Muslim countries believe and societies, and kind of knowing what you're getting yourself into. So next time you think about joining this religion, go back and watch this video. Think about these things that you need to know.